This week on Wild Earth News, we've got climbing fish defying gravity, chimpanzee conflict in Uganda, a stark warning from the RSPB, trouble at the bottom of the world, and seals are finally making a comeback. This is Wild Earth News. Click the subscribe button below. I'm Ben Anderson, and each fortnight we will bring you the biggest stories from our natural world. The breakthroughs, the behaviours, and the warning signs. Now this is a mad one. In Central Africa, a species of fish, the Shellear, has been filmed climbing waterfalls. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Not chasing waterfalls, climbing waterfalls. These Shellear fish anchor themselves to rock, inching their way upstream against fast-moving water. It's certainly one of the more unusual migrations in the animal kingdom. To find out more, I spoke to Kwawele Mutambala, who actually filmed and researched this behaviour, and Emmanuel Vivren from the Royal Museum of Central Africa.
So the fish is like swimming in a vertical position, and it is attaching itself mainly with the pectoral fins, on which you have what we call pads, which are structures where you have a lot of tiny hooks, and with that it can grip itself to the surface. And what is also very interesting is these are normally fish living in rapids. Okay, and so this rapid habitat life is like a predestination to fall climbing life. Once you are ready in the horizontal plane, well, why not try it in a vertical plane? And that is what's happening.
Kwawele, what do you hope a discovery like this can do for the region and for the habitats that the fish are in?
Nous pensons que nous avons utilisé cette découverte comme une première plaidoirie pour essayer de montrer la valeur ajoutée que ces phénomènes accordent à ces chutes-là. Mais est-ce que la question qui en sort, est-ce que c'est un phénomène unique pour ces chutes ou seulement pour les paracnéria? Donc, c'est là que, étant donné que les chutes elles-mêmes se situent à cheval deux parcs nationaux, celui de Kundelungu et de Lupemba, nous pensons que aller explorer d'autres chutes, c'est en fait un atout pour accentuer la conservation des milieux aquatiques et reconnaître les chutes comme des vrais monuments tels que institués par la loi.
This is the kind of story I love. Nature always finds a way, even if it means fish climbing a waterfall. Mad.
Hey! Where are you going?
Now, strap in, this is a much darker story. In Uganda's Kibale National Park, scientists have documented a violent conflict between rival chimpanzee groups from the Ngogo group. These are the chimps from the Netflix series Chimp Empire. Over the course of months, if not years, coordinated attacks have taken place. Ambushes, patrols, and targeted aggression. But this isn't random, it's organised, territorial, and really hard to watch. We spoke to John Matani, who has spent years observing and documenting these chimps.
Well, we're now into our 31st year of study. And during the first 20 years of study, things were going along swimmingly. This group was very large. There's an abundance of food. They lived exceptionally long lives. When they started to show a split was occurring, that was quite surprising.
And what are those first sort of things you start to see when a split might start? Can you predict anything like that, or was it all a bit of a surprise?
It was a complete and utter surprise. And the first real hint that we had of something going on occurred in 2015 in June of that year when I was there. And it was a very specific event. It was when members from the two sides fought, and they fought quite violently instead of coming together peaceably as they normally would have in the past. Chimps from one side chased those from the other side. They both started to scream and shout, After 2.5 years of avoidance and conflict, the two sides just separated completely. They became two independent groups.
For me, I've always found it's fascinating how so much of their behavior is sort of the extremes of human behavior.
There are similarities between us and them, and those are unavoidable given our close evolutionary history with them, along with their sister species, the bonobo. I always say, as a scientist, we're not supposed to anthropomorphize, but I think it's impossible not to watch these chimps and see the human-like characteristics that are being clearly on display.
Does this series of killings and series of behavior stop at any point?
No, an intrinsic facet of chimpanzee behavior is to attack and kill your neighbors. What I find so surprising in this story is here we have a situation where those neighbors were former friends and allies. What I really actually reflect on here is how we as humans don't behave in this way. We're an incredibly cooperative species.
This one is definitely a bit of a reminder that some of our closest relatives can reflect parts of ourselves we'd rather not see. Blimey, that one's a brutal one. Back here in the UK, a slightly surprising message from the RSPB. Stop feeding the birds, at least for now. The charity is advising people to temporarily remove particular food types from feeders due to the rising concerns over disease transmission among garden bird populations. Supplementary feeding of our garden birds has long been seen as a positive act, but when birds gather in high numbers, feeders can become hotspots for infection, and this has been impacting the variety of species. We spoke to Charlotte Ambrose from the RSPB.
So what's going on is through doing a literature review and our own field studies, it's becoming more and more obvious that us feeding the birds, of the fancy word of supplementary feeding, is having a negative impact on certain birds. And it's linked to the diseases that we already know were there, but there is too much evidence now to say that we can't ignore it anymore. We need to do something. So the big ones are the finches, so especially greenfinch, so they've had over 65% decline. And the more we know about it, the disease spreading more likely at bird feeders, we need to do something about it.
And is it multiple diseases, or is it one disease that is being passed between multiple small birds?
So there is a number of diseases out there that affect our garden birds, but the big one affecting the decline, that's causing population declines, is trichomonosis. So we've put a lot of stuff out there, but in simple terms, it's like a bit like tonsillitis, like a throat infection for birds that's caused by a parasite. Particularly nasty. They die of starvation normally. That's how they end up going. It does affect loads of different species, so pigeons, doves, all sorts, but it seems to be the finches that are being severely affected by this disease.
How is it being passed between birds at the feeders?
It's saliva linked. So if a sick bird picks up the seed, for instance, can't swallow it because they've got the parasite, then they would regurgitate the seed. A healthy bird comes along, eats that seed, then catches a disease. From the 1st of May to the 31st of August, if you can pause peanuts and seeds, but you can continue to feed suet and mealworms if you want to. There's lots of bird species out there that benefit a lot from what we put out on our feeders. So we don't want to stop all of that positive stuff at the same time.
Clearly not good news for some of our most colourful and loved garden birds, but a small change for us could make a big difference for them.
So the guys have got a bit of a problem here, and the elephants are coming and helping themselves, taking advantage.
Now some good news. At a protected seal reserve in Chile, populations are showing strong signs of recovery. After years of pressure from hunting, disturbance and environmental change, conservation measures are starting to pay off. And what's clear is this: give nature space and it can bounce back.
So the fur seals are very special type of species, because then they are endemic to the Juan Fernández archipelago. This means that you can still find them swimming around because they most of the time spend in the ocean, but they can only reproduce in these sets of islands, which are off 600 off the Chilean continental coast. There's 3 islands where they have reproductive colonies. One of the most interesting things of these seals, like many other marine mammals, they were extensively hunted between the 17th and 19th century. By the end of the 19th century, they were thought to be extinct for almost 100 years. There were still a few, but if scientists have not seen them, then they don't exist. The locals have always seen them, but it was a very, very small group that was a remnant, perhaps 100 individuals that were left in the farthermost island. Since then, the Chilean government has started setting up different conservation regulations that have helped the fur seals to come back. And then now we have, I think, more than 100,000 at least that there have been since the 60s was their rediscovery.
That's an incredible population restoration almost in such a short period of time.
Protection of their reproductive settings, plus the fact that you couldn't kill them, I think has helped quite a lot for them to come back just by given the chance of existing. It has just happened naturally.
Can these protected pockets keep pace with the wider changes happening in our oceans? Who knows, but this is ultimately an incredible story for some very, very special sea mammals. To Antarctica now, and one of our most loved species. Emperor penguins are facing increasing pressure as climate change reshapes their environment. Sea ice is disappearing, food chains are shifting, and breeding cycles are being disrupted. For emperor penguins, stable sea ice isn't optional, it's essential. Without it, entire colonies can fail. We were fortunate enough to speak to Dr. Peter Fretwell and Dr. Phil Tratham from the BAS about this issue.
The emperor penguin, which everybody knows, it's the icon of the Antarctic. It's a sentinel species. And very recently, the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, have identified that it's now endangered. And it's endangered really for one reason only, that its habitat is declining, habitat quality is declining. And its main habitat is Antarctic sea ice. That's the seasonal sea ice. The frozen surface of the ocean freezes every winter, and that is declining. I first became aware of the vulnerabilities of emperors probably back in 2002. And then I really started thinking about it more closely when I worked with Peter Fretwell. We started looking at satellite images.
We basically look for where the brown stains are on the ice, that shows where those emperor penguin colonies are, and then we we send the really high resolution satellites to make area estimates of how many penguins are on them, because we know approximately that the densities are reasonably similar. We can then work out a population each year, and we've been doing that now for emperor penguins for 15 years or so, every colony every year. So we actually have really good data on emperor penguins, and we've seen that in certain places they're going down quite rapidly. Emperor penguins need sea ice both to breed on and to molt on. Their whole life cycle is dependent on the sea ice on which they live. Over many years, it's been fairly stable. In fact, it's been rising slightly up until about 2015 or so. But then suddenly in 2016, we went from the greatest ever extent to the lowest ever extent. So you were talking something in the region of losing, I think it was something like 4 million square kilometers of sea ice. That's a huge area. That's in the winter. In the summer, we're losing something like a third of all of the sea ice now. But the ironic thing is that for virtually no emperor penguin will ever see a human being. Most of these colonies are never visited by humans. There are probably thousands of miles from the nearest human. Most of them will grow up never seeing a human being. And yet it's our actions which are driving them towards extinction.
In the winter, it's really cold in the Antarctic. It's really windy. They huddle together. They act cooperatively to keep warm. As it gets colder and windier, they huddle tighter and tighter. So they're working together to have a solution to stay warm. We need to do the same. We need to work together to actually overcome greenhouse gas emissions. And I think we have to stay positive. If we're all doom and gloom, we'll give up and go away. But humans are really ingenious. They're clever, they're smart. And I think humans can work together to overcome greenhouse gas emissions, overcome climate change. So I think we have to maintain a positive outlook.
At the very bottom of the world, the warning signs are getting louder and louder. Now for my favourite story of the week, and a truly awesome one. Golden eagles are back. Well, soon they will be, thanks to the government pledging £1 million to support their reintroduction as early as next year. Once driven to near extinction due to hunting, this powerful bird of prey is now the focus of a new conservation effort led by Forestry England and Restoring Upland Nature. A public consultation is set to begin, with Northumberland identified as one of the leading locations for their reintroduction. Golden eagles are so important. They can help restore balance in an ecosystem by controlling species like foxes or badgers. While support for their return is growing, some farmers remain concerned about potential risks to their livestock. If successful, the project would mark the return of one of Britain's most iconic predators and a major step in restoring the country's natural environment. A great return for Britain's most badass bird. And finally, we end on a bit of a tribute to two men who spent their lives bringing the natural world closer to all of us. Doug Allen and Alison McEwen were two of the great wildlife cameramen. From the polar extremes to studios filming iconic sequences for some of the most famous natural history series of all time. They captured moments that very few people ever get to see. Their work helped define an entire generation of natural history filmmaking and inspired countless others to follow in their footsteps. They didn't just film nature, they helped people feel it. What a couple of weeks for nature, doing what it does best, surprising us, challenging us, and reminding us just how fragile it is and what's at stake. Subscribe below to get your regular wildlife briefing. I'm Ben Anderson, and remember, a wildlife is out there. Go get it.